In the hush after the flood and the slow rebuilding of fields and families, the earth was a wide canvas waiting for colour. People learned again to plant, to sing, to name their children with hope that stretched past the horizon. Stories of God's mercy travelled like campfire embers on the wind, and for a while the world felt young enough to begin again. But beginnings always face a temptation to trust the giver or to try to seize the gift for ourselves. A band of travellers came upon a plain in the land of Shinar, a place level as a promise and spacious as an ambition. It was the kind of geography that invites a blueprint. Their eyes measured the sky and then measured their hands. Bricks, someone said, not rough stone that limits us to what we find, but bricks we can make and shape and stack. Bitumen, another answered, thick and black and binding. They could bake their plans in ovens and lift them with scaffolds of confidence. If a field is a place to eat, a city is a place to be noticed, and the plain seemed perfect for a city that would announce itself to the world, they decided together to build a tower, and not just any tower, but a staircase ambitioned toward the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, they said, so we are not scattered over the face of the whole earth. The sentence sounds sensible enough if all you want is survival, but tucked inside it is an ache to escape limits, to resist the risk of trust. God had blessed them with a mandate to fill the earth, not to anchor their fear in one proud, glittering place. Their project made uniformity feel like safety, and the promise of God feel like a threat to their cohesion. Unity is beautiful when it holds hands with humility, but unity without humility hardens into uniformity, and uniformity without love breeds a cold kind of power. The people on the plain spoke one language and shared one vocabulary, which should have been a recipe for understanding. Instead, it became fuel for acceleration. With no friction of difference, their plans streamed forward on rails. They were efficient and impressive. They were also on the brink of forgetting that heaven is not a destination you reach by climbing, but a gift that comes down in mercy. The text says that God came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The phrase is gentle, almost playful. The one who holds galaxies stoops to examine human brickwork. He reads not only the mortar, but the motives. He hears the way the phrase, "make a name for ourselves," rings like a bell of self-salvation. He knows how quickly tools become idols and projects become prisons. He sees that the speed of their success will only magnify the depth of their pride. Then comes the surprising decision, a kind of mercy disguised as disruption. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. It is not punishment for creativity, it is protection from self-destruction. God introduces difference to save them from a unity that would end in tyranny. He breaks their sentences into new sounds so that they must learn again to listen. He turns their tower into a classroom where the first assignment is humility. The scene, as we imagine it, is chaotic. Words spill and shatter. Questions arrive in syllables no one can map. A foreman on a scaffold shouts instructions that suddenly sound like birdsong to the workers below. A mother calls to her child and hears a melody she cannot translate. It is as if the world is born again, this time not with one voice but with a choir in need of a conductor. Each group gathers around those who can understand, and the plain empties as they set out in different directions. The city they named Babel becomes known for the confusion that saved them from themselves. The story is not an enemy of human culture, it is a guardian of it. It is a warning that what we can build is not always what we should build, that the height of a tower is a poor measure of the health of a heart. God does not fear the human capacity to create. He breathed it into us. He fears for us when our creations become the scaffolding for pride. He scatters so that we might become truly fruitful, not merely famous. He multiplies languages so that we might learn the holiness of listening, the dignity of difference, the art of hospitality. Even now we retell the tale because we recognize ourselves in its dust and ambition. We have not stopped mixing clay and heat to raise monuments to our importance. Our bricks are code and concrete and influence. Our bitumen is money and applause and metrics that promise meaning. We dream of buildings that scrape the sky and platforms that promise omnipresence. We speak fluently in the language of brand and algorithm. We make plans to keep from being scattered, and in the process we scatter our attention across 1,000 glinting surfaces. Pause the rush and consider how language works when it is faithful. Words are meant to be bridges, not weapons, windows, not mirrors that only reflect ourselves. When God diversifies speech, He is not silencing us. He is inviting us to the humility of translation. To translate is to admit that the other is not a version of me. It is to bend the neck of my certainty and learn the grammar of someone else's story. In that bending, pride thaws. In that learning, love finds a syntax. If what you are hearing strengthens your spirit and you want more reflections like this, please like, comment, share and subscribe so this message can reach someone who needs it. Now let us continue. There is a deeper music beneath the scene in Shinar. The tower is a metaphor, but it is also a mirror. What we lift with our hands exposes what we crave with our hearts. The builders sought a name that could not be forgotten, a permanence carved into skyline and memory. God does not begrudge us the desire to matter. He meets it by naming us Himself. The antidote to Babel is not the erasure of ambition, but the sanctification of it. To be named by God is to receive identity as gift rather than wage. It is to hear your value spoken from the voice that cannot lie. Language in the hands of pride builds ladders. Language in the hands of love builds tables. At a table we are not stacked by rank or height. We are arranged for fellowship. The scattered peoples begin over time to discover one another again. They trade stories and songs. They learn the taste of each other's bread. They borrow tools and metaphors. The dissonance becomes a kind of fertile tension where new art and fresh wisdom are born. Babel is not the end of communication. It is the beginning of a world where communication requires care. Think of how our own lives reveal this. In a home, two people who share a mother tongue can still speak foreign languages of expectation. In a workplace, teams fluent in strategy can still fail to hear one another's fears. In a church, people who confess the same creed can still default to the grammar of suspicion. When we forget to listen, we rebuild Babel with polite words and theological mortar. When we listen with patience, we become builders of a sanctuary where different voices harmonize around the presence of God. The Bible later tells of a day when God gathers a small crowd in Jerusalem and breathes on them in fire and wind. The miracle is not that everyone finally speaks the same language again, but that everyone hears the wonders of God in their own language. That day is not a reversal that erases difference, it is a fulfillment that dignifies it. The God who scattered the proud to save them now gathers the humble to send them with good news. Instead of one tower that tries to rise, there are many voices that carry love outward. The name that matters is not ours but His, and He writes it kindly on open hearts. So what do we do with the tower already rising inside us, the plans that aim to protect us from being forgotten? Begin with confession as clear as daylight. I am tempted to build so that I do not have to trust. I am tempted to make a monument where God has offered a mission. Say it plainly, not to drown in shame, but to rise in truth. Then ask for a new assignment, not to stop building, but to build differently. To build homes where hospitality trains the tongue. To build businesses where honesty weighs more than numbers. To build communities where the loud do not drown out the quiet. To build with the grammar of blessing. Next, practice the small courage of translation. When someone speaks from a different place, resist the reflex to correct and begin with the desire to understand. Ask a question that gives them back their dignity. Reflect their words to show you heard. Learn the phrases that carry meaning for them. When you do, you will discover that language is not just a tool for exchange, but a place where souls meet. Translating another story is a way of washing their feet with your attention. Finally, remember the mercy inside the scattering. The people left Babel in many directions, and the world widened with their going. You too might be asked to leave the safe sameness of your current circle and step into a field where your vocabulary wobbles at first. Do not fear the wobble. It is the gate into wisdom. It is the sound of God teaching your heart to lean, to learn, to love beyond the borders of what is familiar. If the tower in your plans begins to crack, consider that it may be the kindness of the Lord opening a path to a better name than the one you could make for yourself. Centuries later, another construction rises on a hill, not of brick, but of wood, not reaching up, but lifted up. There, God does not confuse our language. He speaks forgiveness in a word every human can learn. Father, forgive. That word breaks the spell of pride more surely than scattered syllables. It gathers us not into uniformity, but into a family whose language is grace.